Today, we're diving into a huge problem for franchise brands. How do you fix a massive, unit-level operational issue without creating an even bigger legal one for corporate? Let's get into it. Okay, let's kick things off with a number from the International Franchise Association that'll really make you sit up. A staggering 88% of franchisors say their franchisees are struggling to find workers. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. That's nearly 9 out of every 10 of your franchisees fighting to find the people they need just to keep the doors open, let alone grow. What does that actually do to your brand?
Well, here's the thing. It's not just one problem, right? It's more like a domino effect. You've got understaffed units, which means missed sales, and of course, that means lower royalties for you. It suddenly gets a lot harder to attract new franchisees because the unit economics don't look as good. And with shaky hiring practices, you're just inviting more risk, more claims, and this expensive revolving door of turnover that just bleeds money.
So, you gotta ask, right? If this is hurting the entire brand this much, why doesn't corporate just, step in and solve the problem for everybody?
Well, the answer is this very tricky legal minefield called joint employer liability, or co-employment. And it puts franchisors in a really tough spot. You want to help, but you have to be so careful about how you do it.
So what does that actually mean? In plain English, the more a franchisor controls a franchisee's employees, we're talking hiring, firing, pay, schedules, the greater the chance a court could say, hey, you're an employer too. It's kind of like being held responsible for a car crash just because you recommended the mechanic. You weren't driving the car, but you were just too involved.
And this slide really lays out the guardrails for you. Think of it like this. On one side, you have the safe stuff, enforcing brand standards. Things like uniforms, recipes. That's your job. That's what you're supposed to do. But on the other side, that's the danger zone. When you start getting into vetoing hires, setting wages, or supervising employees, you are crossing a very, very risky line.
Now, the legal landscape here has been a total roller coaster. But here's what you need to know right now. The rule on the books focuses on substantial, direct, and immediate control. And yeah, that's a bit narrower than some of the scarier proposals we've seen. But let me be clear, the risk is not gone. It just means you have to be way smarter about where you draw those lines.
Okay, so if you can't just jump in and take control, how in the world are you supposed to solve this massive hiring problem? This is where you have to start thinking differently. It's not about taking the wheel, it's about giving your franchisees a better car and a map. Exactly. The answer isn't about grabbing more control, it's about building a smarter structure. See, the goal isn't to be a puppet master. It's to provide your franchisees with a powerful, optional system they can use, with an expert guide to help them navigate. So here's what that model actually looks like. Step 1, the franchisor sponsors an optional program. Step 2, the franchisee, and this part is key, chooses to opt in. They are still the sole employer making all the final decisions. Step 3, a third-party vendor provides all the technology, the coaching, and the hands-on support. And the result? Well, everyone wins. Corporate stays safely at arm's length, while your operators get the help they desperately need to drive sales. All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. What does this third-party system actually do for an operator who's out there struggling to hire people?
You know what the biggest headache in hiring is? It's that mountain of applications you have to dig through. So this technology automates the entire top of the funnel. We're talking job postings, AI-powered screening, video interviews, even reference checks. What that means is your local managers aren't wasting hours sifting through resumes. Nope. They're spending their valuable time talking to people who are already vetted, qualified, and ready to go.
And this part? This is absolutely crucial. The vendor provides the kind of direct, hands-on support that corporate teams just can't or at least shouldn't. We're talking one-on-one coaching, training webinars, help with job descriptions. Because this support is coming from an independent expert, it effectively breaks that chain of liability. It's the secret sauce that lets you provide real support without taking on that co-employment risk. But it's not just about filling seats, right? It's about finding the right people. That's where a tool like Integrity First comes in. It's a really quick, mobile-friendly assessment that helps screen for things like accountability and integrity right from the very start of the process. And you might be thinking, does something like that really make a difference? Oh yeah. Check this out. Peer-reviewed research found that using this kind of overt integrity test can deliver an ROI of over 700%. How? A big part of it is by significantly cutting down on costly issues like workers' comp claims, which are so often tied to those new, poorly vetted employees. And that matters so much because turnover is this silent killer of profitability at the unit level. Cornell University found it can cost a franchisee around $6,000 every single time a frontline worker walks out the door. That's just a massive, constant drain on their bottom line.
Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually implement something like this? And what kind of results can you realistically expect? Let's walk through the playbook.
Just look at this hypothetical for a 100-unit system. You're not just tweaking things at the edges here. You're making major improvements, slashing your time to hire, taking a huge bite out of turnover, and getting a direct lift in unit sales because your stores are finally staffed properly. I mean, these are the kinds of numbers that are absolute game changers for a franchise brand.
Think about what that means for a manager. Going from 3 weeks to find someone down to less than 2, that's huge. It means you fill that open shift faster, you stop burning out your current team, and you capture every dollar of sales that walks in the door.
And it's the same story with retention. It isn't magic. When you use a consistent, smarter process to screen for the right people, guess what? You hire people who actually fit the job, and people who fit the job tend to stick around. You finally start to break that nonstop, expensive cycle of churn. And maybe the best part of all this is that you don't have to boil the ocean. You don't have to launch this system-wide on day one. It's a really manageable, step-by-step process. You start small. You set up your legal guardrails, you run a pilot with maybe 5 or 10 units to prove it works, you measure everything, and only then, once you have the data, do you start rolling out the proven system to the rest of the network.
So when you put it all together, what's the big takeaway here? Look, the goal is never zero risk. That just doesn't exist in business. The real goal is to get rid of the avoidable risk, all while you finally go out and fix one of the biggest operational problems holding back your entire system.
And that really leaves us with just one final question to think about. When you consider the direct impact on your revenue, on your ability to grow, and on your legal exposure, what is the true cost of doing nothing?